Hi, I'm James Shillinglaw, and I'm here with a quite familiar face, Zane Kerby, who is President and CEO of the American Society of Travel Advisors, ASTA. Now, we've talked to Zane at least once during this crisis, and he had some more news that came out, plus a preview of some of the other big news ASTA has coming up, although we will learn more about that at a press event next week. We're going to find out about exactly what Zane wrote and what's coming up for ASTA on Insider Travel Report. Now, Zane, first of all, how are you and where are you?
Hey, James, it's good to be with you again. I'm still here at home. As you can see, the three puzzles behind me, this is my home office and where we
You got to change that around. You got to put some either an ASTA backdrop or a few new puzzles or artwork. There you go.
You're right. It's getting kind of boring. I'll take another advisement.
I only see you once, so it's not boring to me yet. So you're good. So congratulations. That's great that you're all okay and your family's okay. Now, in terms of what we wanted to talk about with you today was really last week you wrote a column that I thought was incredibly effective as a defense for cruising in the current age. And it was called Why the Demonization of Cruising Must Stop. We did publish that in full on Insider Travel Report because I thought it was an important column. Can you tell me what drove you to write that column again?
Well, yeah, a couple things. So first off, we had petitioned the CDC and the administration for answers on how people can cruise safely, or at least more eyesight or more sight into the process of what they're doing, what they're determining with the cruise lines. Like, are there milestones that you've met? We laid out our case to the CDC and to the administration, several months ago, and got kind of a perfunctory "we're working on it" response from them, which was very unsatisfying. Then, earlier in the week, we saw that advertisement from the CDC that again reminded people that they shouldn't cruise. And then and then there was an article that came out from someone on the inside who is working for the CDC, and it really demonized the cruise industry at large and tried to I guess say that it was irresponsible of them to try to continue selling cruises that they hoped would materialize and that they'd be able to sail this fall and the next winter. So those things all combined, the lack of response from the CDC itself, them taking out full page advertisements telling people not to cruise, and then finally, just having a really what I thought was an inappropriate response from the CDC official in the media about how bad cruise lines are for trying to sell their product was just a little bit beyond the pale. So those are the impetus for writing the article, and I thank you very much for publishing it. And yeah, it hit me in kind of a very visceral way. So I felt like I needed to respond.
Well, many of your members are dependent on cruise sales, and they were very appreciative, and we got a lot of comments on the column. I too read that article in Skift, which was where the CDC official in question seemed to betray a bias against cruising. And of course, then earlier in the week, CLIA had held a press conference, and I think most of us had assumed that CLIA and the major cruise lines were in active and regular talks or negotiations with the CDC, and it became apparent that they really weren't. And they really haven't been communicating that well, although Adam Goldstein, who was the chairman of CLIA at that point, said there is now an opening for us to have those discussions. I don't know now here 2 weeks later whether those discussions have begun, but I think we were all a little bit mystified that they haven't been talking, and there hasn't been dialogue. And so when your column came up, it's almost like you become the defender of cruising. I do think cruise lines should step up and probably actively do the same if we don't get some results, because this is not a frivolous industry. This is not, this is an industry that that many advisors are dependent on, and many, obviously it's billions of dollars in business and travel. And I'm not quite sure why we can't have communication to figure out ways to get cruising back on target again. What's your feeling about, you've been waiting for the CDC to respond to you. at ASTA and they just don't get back to you? I mean, what's happening there?
Yeah, and that's just it, Jim. You hit it on the head. This is an industry with an enormous multiplier effect, and they're not only travel advisors, but people who sell linens and televisions and food. I mean, and fuel. There's an enormous multiplier effect with the cruise industry. So to think that it was such a low priority for the CDC, that they've done nothing for months, and now are just sort of starting to get around to this idea that cruising is important and that they ought to figure out how to cruise safely is really unacceptable. So, that they've also put out this request for information, this RFI, and we've looked at some of the questions. And to be frank, some of them seem better served for public policy and health officials rather than, sort of the general public or whomever they'd like to respond to this RFI. I don't know if there's any constraints around who can respond. I know we're going to turn our members onto the RFI and to respond to directly to the CDC as soon as we can get Senate Republicans to act in their own interest and to pass another stimulus bill for COVID-19. So you'll see all those things coming, right? Once we get past August 8th, which is when we fully expect a bill to be passed, the next COVID bill to be passed, then we'll turn some more attention toward getting our members to talk to and to petition the CDC in response to the RFI, and then also to make sure that they're making more of this a priority than they certainly have in the past.
Well, I do want to talk briefly with you in a little bit later about the stimulus bill, because obviously that's something that is really needed, because obviously this crisis has gone on much longer than all of us even conceived of. But have you been in talks at all with CLIA or maybe some of the major cruise lines to see if everyone is in alignment on this in terms of what the CDC is looking for? I mean, I was astounded that they're only asking for requests for information now, about the situation where we're already months into this crisis and cruising has been shut down since March effectively.
Yeah, we have, Kelly Craig and I did make contact earlier this week. We're scheduling some additional calls for coming weeks to sort of organize our response to the RFI. The timing of the RFI is also kind of problematic and head scratching in a way as well, because the no sale order goes through September 30th, and the information on the RFI is due September 21st. I'm sure that they're going to gather all this information and in 3 or 4 days, kind of 3 or 4 business days, and review everything and then lift the no sale order, which is what we expect them to do. We want the no sale order lifted. And if there are certain constraints around that, like a percentage of cabins that have to be left open or masking that needs to be done, I mean, that we're certainly, we just want them to say something rather than nothing at all. So we fully expect the no sale order to get lifted with conditions, and that's fine. We just want to make sure that they're working diligently behind the scenes to establish those conditions.
But, as what happened recently with the extension, because nobody was talking and they had no current information, CDC seemed to have been basing their decision on statistics that were from a cruise segment that was no longer operating. It seemed a very odd way to go about it from my perspective, and maybe from yours and from the cruise lines. The question is now, can we all get on the same page? CDC apparently doesn't view its role as helping to develop conditions. They're just waiting for everyone to come up with health and safety protocols that are acceptable to them, I guess.
Yeah, it seems like the process is backwards. I would agree with that. And we need, we've looked over and over again, James, and we have surveyed consumers every 2 weeks since the pandemic started to sort of understand their mood, understand what kinds of assurances they'll need in order to come back to cruising and to going to the nation's airports and getting on airplanes. And two of the things that are really clear. The first one is that people want to be able to control the health risk of any given activity, right? They just want to make sure that they can control it. But there's a second kind of feeling to that, which is once people do go out and engage in some activity that puts them in contact with strangers or public activity, that there's also this prevailing feeling that people aren't acting as safely as I am, or And so those two things together, the one wanting to control the health risk of any particular activity, and then feeling that other people aren't being as safe as I am, those things together are really powerful deterrent to travel. So, we want the CDC to help with both things, right? We want them to help us understand what people need to do in order to keep themselves safe. And then on the other side, we want them, to sort of define broadly what we all need to do together in order to keep each other safe.
Well, I would agree. So hopefully, ASTA, CLIA, the major cruise lines, and the CDC can finally get together and have some pretty high-level discussions about this, because it certainly feels like there hasn't been enough communication about it, and that the result of that was an extension of the no-sail order to September 30th, and that means more work for travel advisors who had clients booked in that period, and now have to either rebook them or get refunds. But hopefully we'll get on the same page, and that this September 30th is going to be the last one. And then you won't have to be the defender of the cruise lines anymore, because I don't know anybody from the cruise industry that came out with a column like that, and I was certainly happy to see that, because it is so, your membership is so dependent on cruising, and they all want to get back to doing business. And for the CDC official to basically demonize in effort travel advisors for booking their clients on future cruises is just absurd. That was totally uncalled for, and clearly betrayed a bias on his part, if not his organization's part.
Agree.
So we'll see. But let's move on to something else. You mentioned the new government relief, the new stimulus package. You said, what is the timing on that, and where are we with that? And what are you looking for?
So the Democrats passed the HEROES Act on May 15th, I guess 10, 11 weeks ago. And that was sort of the first goalpost, right? That was their wish list, and it composed of nearly $3 trillion in stimulus, which was, a third larger than the CARES Act. So really significant stimulus there from the House Democrats who were in charge of that process. Well, the Republicans earlier this week put out their own goalpost on the other side, saying we think that the next stimulus bill should be about $1 trillion, and sort of broadly outline some of their wish list of what they want that the next bill to include. Now, the real challenge here is that they're working against a pretty tight deadline. They're going to recess after August 9th, and so everyone expects a bill to be done by August 9th. Now, we are laser focused on this effort. I hope that anyone who's watching will go to the ASTA portal, the advocacy portal, whether you're an ASTA member or not. Of course, I hope you are. But if you're not, please go to that portal. If you have friends and family, blood relatives, or anyone who can go to that portal and contact their local congressman. We make it very easy to do so. And there are two or three primary priorities that ASTA has. The first is the extension of unemployment insurance for people, to make sure that the vast majority of ASTA members are small business owners and independent contractors, and they are greatly affected when that program expires July 31st. So we want that to be topped up, and we want it to run through the end of the year. Mm-hmm. The next priority is the restart bill, which is really important to ASTA's efforts. Now, it's already supported by 40 U.S. senators, which is good. But the more co-sponsors for the restart program, the better off it's going to be, and the more chance it has of making it into law. The primary, it kind of takes a PPP program and enhances it. And so if you're able to show a certain amount of revenue loss because of the COVID virus, which obviously our members can do, it actually tailors the amount of relief and forgiveness of loan forgiveness based on the amount of loss that you've had. Now, this is, and it also expands it because right now some of ASTA's largest members, those who have more than 500 employees, and there are a handful of them in that category, have unfortunately not been able to access any kind of grant or loan relief program. They've only been offered loans. So the restart program is really, really important. If there's anything you can call your viewers can do, is to call their congressman and their members of Congress and support the restart bill.
No, I was going to ask, yeah. So this is another version of the Paycheck Protection Program that would be extended under this. I mean, obviously you have unemployment, which helps your independent contractors. The Paycheck Protection program would help employees of travel agencies. And then finally, I don't know, this sounds like you're looking for loan forgiveness for the larger agencies who were actually under that airline part of the bill as ticket sellers for 500 or more employees who were of travel agencies. So, and what do you, I mean, obviously, I think all three are important. But have you any idea what the prospects that Congress, right now, we hear a lot about the $200 versus $600 in addition for the unemployment insurance. The Republicans, namely, proposing $200, whereas before it was $600 for the last few weeks until it ran out. But we haven't heard about the extension of whatever it would be called PPP or the SBA or additional SBA loans and things like that. So you're hoping that that kind of stuff will be passed in the new bill, correct?
Yeah, that has to be passed in the new bill. You know, and just you went back to the Treasury program that's actually the ticket agent loans that are available. You know, a bunch of airlines applied for those, and there's some grant relief for airlines in those. There's no actual grant or loan forgiveness relief offered to those large agencies. But we have about a dozen agencies who have applied for those loans, and none of them have come through.
Wow.
In fact, yeah. So that's one of the reasons why it's really important for us to support the Restart program, because the Restart program not only gives existing agencies who have already taken out a PPP loan a second bite of that apple, but it also expands it to those larger agencies who didn't get relief the first time around.
So these mid-sized agencies that would be eligible for the PPP, this is another round of that you're looking for,
Yes.
Based on what they would have lost, what they estimate they've lost. So even if they did participate in the first round of PPP, they can go ahead and do this because obviously that ran out.
That's right.
Okay, that's great. Well, if hopefully those planks will be supported, I know there's a big gap between $3 trillion and $1 trillion, but it's got to be done. And because who would have thought we'd still be talking about this, and maybe even in a worse situation now with the COVID-19 crisis as we head into 2021. Now, given
and if I could say one more, I mean that's exactly right. Now, Congress didn't want to do something long term. They felt like, well, let's get to the end of summer and see where we are. Right. Well, where we are is still really in the tall grass.
Yeah, we're not in a good place.
Yeah, we have not recovered. You know, there's still only 22% of the people who normally get on an airplane today getting on an airplane. Who went on an airplane last year got on an airplane today. So our numbers are still way down. Demand is extraordinarily suppressed, and as you mentioned, there's a no sale order from the CDC. So Congress must act, and they must act now. And that's why it's important for us to put pressure. It's a numbers game. We've got to put more pressure on our legislators to make sure that they understand that we are an important industry that needs to be saved and helped at this critical time.
Well, yeah, and then there is a perception among some media and certainly some government officials that travel is some kind of frivolous activity. It's been, we've been fighting that, and as national or international organizations like the WTTC and U.S. Travel have been fighting that perception for a long time. And now, this is the industry that really got hit the hardest, in my opinion. Obviously, small business across the country got hit hard, and your ASTA agencies are, really examples of small business. So let's hope that we can get that additional relief so we can finally get through this, and maybe by the end of the year we can start to emerge. Now, Amen. And let's talk finally about, you've got an event coming up. Normally we'd be talking about the ASTA Global Conference, which was going to be in Washington, but then you announced a new ASTA Global Live, which also will be the end of August, August 25th through 28th. Can you tell us a little bit about that event and why the main reasons you feel travel advisors should attend it? Now, some of it is open to non-members, although the price is a little bit more, but give me some reasons for advisors out there to attend the event.
Well, there's a lot of reasons for people to come. We hope many come, and right now we have about 1,500 registered. So that's a really a great number, and so there's going to be a lot of interchange, a lot of opportunity for people to learn from their peers and to sit at virtual tables and exchange ideas. But I think it's never before been so important for us to hear from our public policy officials, both those at the Department of Transportation and those who sit in positions of leadership in both the House and the Senate. And we have those people coming and addressing our convention, and some will take questions as well. So the sitting Secretary of Transportation, Elaine Chao, Dina Titus, the head of the Transportation Committee in the U.S. House of Representatives, and Senator Roy Blunt, who heads the Senate Caucus on Transportation. So we have the people who are coming in to talk to ASTA travel advisors about what they're seeing, what decisions they're making, and I think that's one of the really important reasons to come, is being at that sort of nexus between public policy and business has maybe never been more important than right now. The other thing is we have our wonderful esteemed chairman of the board, Dave Hirschberger, is going to interview Tom Nealon, the president of Southwest Airlines. So we'll hear what's going on and what's new with the airline industry. They've certainly been a really great partner to ASTA, and I talked with officials there, and they're sort of ahead of schedule in terms of their wishes to continue increasing flights for recovery. We also want to talk to influencers and have several important influencers there. Scott McCartney from the Wall Street Journal. Brett Fletcher from CNN News, Rick Steves, Sandra McLemore. We have a bunch of we have lots of voices who are also going to help shape public perception of what travel looks like in the recovery. So we built a really great program. We hope that more and more people come. And as you mentioned, if you're a member, you can come at a really discounted price. If you're a non-member, you can come at a decent price as well.
Well, it sounds like you may get attendance that might exceed even your live shows recently, because it's virtual. Nobody has to go. If you're already up to 1,500, I would hope in the next month you get another 5 to even 1,000. And we just published a little promo for it today. Although you just told me some more speakers that I didn't know about. So I guess we have to do another one, which we certainly can do in the next 4 weeks, and just update people on what's going to happen at that conference. But you mentioned, Elaine Chao. I mean, as you mentioned some other ones, it really sounds like it's going to be a great virtual event, and you do definitely have some top speakers. And yeah, we're all getting a little tired of these Zoom and virtual events and everything else, but it's the only way we really can network and see each other. So I think it's a great thing you're doing. And I do hope a lot of you out there, and a lot of our viewers, our 100,000 travel advisors, will certainly consider doing this, because this is really your association. It's the one. And hopefully some of them, a lot of them will decide to become members.
Amen to that too.
So there you go. Because if they become members, they can have a discount on the conference and then future events. Now, is there any other message you want to get out to the travel advisors out there that our viewers are about either your column, the whole situation with cruising, the government relief, or the ASTA Global Live event?
We're certainly staying busy. There's a lot to think through, but one of the things is, again, as I mentioned, we are surveying the public every couple of weeks to kind of understand what they're thinking and how they're feeling about things. And one of the things you're going to see us push on is for the FAA to regulate masks. We're talking about the CDC last week. This week, this is really important development, James. We've again just mentioned that flights are still down by about 80%, or sort of the TSA throughput numbers is down about 80%. People are ready to fly, but they want the assurance that the people who are strangers who are around them are going to be acting in a responsible way. And we think, and just from looking at the data, we feel like now again, most airlines have already mandated masks, but their ability to actually enforce that comes from the FAA, and the FAA has sat silently. So we want to make sure that the FAA communicates very clearly that masking is mandatory for all flights coming in and out of and within the United States. We feel like once that message is out there and endorsed and it's a regulation from the FAA, that even more people that millions more will return to the nation's skies, which is really important for our recovery. So.
So no, then absolutely, that's essential because I do know, as you said, that most U.S. airlines have mandated masks and are enforcing it, but again, they don't have the backing of the FAA in doing that, and I just don't understand. I know Consumer Reports has come out asking for a unified standards that FAA could do. The airlines themselves has been instituting increasingly new great cleaning, health, and safety protocols, as have most suppliers, whether they're cruises or hotels or tour operators. Everyone is getting on board with this, and in most cases, mask wearing is crucial. And I think that message has to get out. And if people feel more comfortable flying, then maybe they'll feel more comfortable booking travel to whether it's a cruise or a destination, even within the United States. It's going to be a challenge, but I do think that's a great message to get out.
Well, you'll see us pushing on that this week, and really appreciate you allowing me to come on and tell your viewers and your readers about this.
Well, Zane, again, thank you for taking the time. I know you've got a lot of things going on, and you've been very busy. We're supposed to take this time to reflect, right? But we can't catch a breath, right? But it is great to see you as always, and I look forward, if not before, seeing you at the ASTA Global Live Conference, August 25th to 28th, and seeing all the great speakers you're going to have for that event. And again, thank you so much.
Thank you, James. Thanks for having me on.
I'm James Shillinglaw, and this is Insider Travel Report.